Hello and welcome back to Still Smoking Tape, episode 6. This is part 3 of the ACC Outlook preseason, and we're going to be doing a G5 deep dive as we always do in the episodes leading up to the season. And then we also have our big bets for the season win totals, our ACC big bets. I tried to cover a lot in this one. As I told you guys before, we're going to be lumping Notre Dame in there to round off the ACC because that's the majority of the teams that they decided to play this year. So we're going to be looking at them as well, along with everybody else. But we're very close to football season. I can't help but be excited, and I love doing this research and trying to get these videos out to you guys, so you guys have a little bit of an idea of what teams look like before the season starts. Not necessarily just the ACC or like just conference by conference, but just in-depth players, in-depth teams, any way that you guys can find an edge against knowing something that no one else knows. I'm trying to find it for you guys. So to start off, we're going to start off with SMU. SMU had a pretty good year last year. They didn't end the season they wanted to be ending the season. They kind of had an upset. They had an upset loss to end the year. But they bring back a lot. And SMU is kind of one of those programs where they've been, I don't want to say throwing money at college football, but to me it seems like they kind of try to take advantage of the money that they have a lot more than a lot of other schools. A lot of other schools are kind of hands off when it comes to the money, especially in the ACC, unless you're a big spender. And SMU for years now has been a big spender in the ACC, especially for football and just trying to get their football program what it used to be. It's a program with a rich history. If you don't know a lot about it, you should definitely look into it. But starting off, SMU returns their star quarterback, Kevin Jennings, who I think is probably a top 3 quarterback in the conference. Came out recently that they have named a athletic facility of some sort after him, which is kind of insane because he's still an active player. I can see it if he was in the NFL or something, but he's still an active player. But hey, man, if you're going to do that, if you're that good of a player, then do it. I mean, that's only a quarterback like this comes to SMU once every so often. So, I mean, I understand they're trying to capitalize on that. But they do bring back, as well as him, they bring back a lot of the returning production from last season. So not only Kevin Jennings, but a lot of the guys that he was throwing to, handing the ball off to, they have a lot of snaps returning, especially on the offensive line. I think they brought in 2 transfers who were expected to be starters, but other than that, they have 3 guys who have started 12 or 16 plus games, I think. So they have the experience up front. I think their offense is poised to have another pretty big year, I would say. They attacked the portal pretty hard. They have a top 10. They had a top 10 portal class in the ACC, and it wasn't a big class, but the guys they went and got were guys who I expect to come in and be game changers right off the bat. Just truly, I expect them to be game changers. They brought in some serious talent from a couple of the G5 teams. They brought talent from had really good years last year. I know they brought a guy from ECU to play wide receiver. He was a monster last year. And obviously that's to be expected. ECU lost a lot of their offensive staff to Ole Miss, but at the same time, they brought in guys like that, and they also supplemented with some P4 guys. I like a lot of the guys they brought in. I think last year, being that close to the ACC championship kind of left a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of the people that are really, really good. I don't want to say really good, but very diehard SMU fans probably had a bad taste in their mouth the way the year ended, being so close to the ACC championship, not making it. I think that for me last season, they had some really high points. I believe they beat Miami at home. Like that's a great win. And I think the one thing about this team that is different this year compared to last year is last year they were kind of getting beat up on the defensive side of the ball in the trenches. If you watch their game against NC State, and there was a couple other games they played, they kind of lost that game or lost those games in the front 7. So I think it was cool to see them in the portal, and especially in like recruiting, they kind of went after front 7 guys and tried to beef it up. I mean, they got 2 guys on the defensive line that are absolute studs. I think one of them was a top 10 edge in the portal, and the other one was like a top 20 edge in the portal. So they got guys that really can just stop the run and go after the quarterback. I think it'll be very interesting to see how that their team, especially their defense, plays out this year. I think that they're really a defensive cohesive unit. Like they're a defensive unit away from being consistently in the ACC championship conversation. If they aren't already, then I think that's kind of what they're lacking in. I think as long as you have Kevin Jennings at quarterback, you're going to be all right. He's a very unguardable quarterback, if that makes sense. He's kind of like pick you apart. You kind of have to pick your poison with him. He's kind of one of those guys where he can run it, he can throw it. He's a very accurate passer. He's a very smart quarterback. He's not going to make dumb decisions. Because he was thrown into the fire so early at SMU, I think that really separates him when it comes to ACC quarterbacks this season. A lot of these guys, they haven't been in the positions that he's been in. People forget that he's been the starting quarterback for a playoff team at SMU. People like seem to forget that, but I to me, he separates himself this year as the guy quarterback wise in the ACC. I can see that for sure. I think that he's one of those guys where because he just needs the weapons around him, it puts pressure on the play callers, especially like the guys who are going to be calling the plays early on in the season. They really go between two different guys, and I think the impact of the transfers along with the play calling early in the year will determine really how much momentum this team gets by the time they play some really big games. Like they played Notre Dame this year, so like they have some really big games on the schedule. So we'll see what it ends up looking like. When it came to doing their projection for me, it came down to, do I think they're going to win the Notre Dame game? I'm not going to pick them in that game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I wouldn't pick them in that game. And then also, how do they really play at ACC play down the stretch? Because I think last year they kind of slowly fell off down the stretch, but overall, I have them going 10-2. I think their ceiling's 11-1. Like I said, the one game I don't see them winning is Notre Dame. And then the floor of 8-4. I mean, if they do what they did last year and just start dropping games towards the end of the year against ACC teams that they should be beating, that's how you get to your floor. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's SMU. I think next we're gonna go into California. Okay, so very interesting situation. Last year they had a stud of a freshman quarterback, JKS, and they had a situation where they didn't feel like they had the coach necessary to maximize the players and the talent that they had. And I think that this year for California is kind of an all-in year for them. I think that they have made the changes they want to make. They've brought the talent they've wanted to bring in. They brought the coach they wanted to bring in. So to me, this is kind of an all-in year for them. Tosh Lupoi, he takes over as head coach. It was a competitive year last year. It was not necessarily a bad year by them by any means. Mediocre, I'd say. I think with how much they brought into the portal and how much talent and how many just players in general, how big the class was, this is a team that has all the opportunity in the world to go out and just kind of show people what they can do. And I think with JKS being a breakout player last year and people him starting to get on some people's radars, I think that the sky's the limit with this team. I don't think that it's a bad thing to say that your team's all in the first year of your head coach. I think LSU's in that situation. There's a couple other teams in that situation. Like you could argue Virginia Tech's in that situation, but I really do think that they are kind of all in this year. They brought in the second best transfer class in the ACC, and it was a top 15 class nationally, which is pretty impressive. I would say, you think Cal Berkeley and you don't think of recruiting and you don't think of money. But I mean, here they are up there with the best of the best. I mean, I wouldn't say that they should be out recruiting some SEC teams, but clearly in the portal they attacked it harder. They got more than a lot of the other SEC teams. So, I mean, you can't hate them for trying. I think the big story for them is on offense at least is at wide receiver. So they brought in a couple really talented wide receivers. I think 3 or 4 to be exact. They also brought in a tight end who was a top 6 tight end in the transfer rankings. So you bring in a tight end who is supposed to come in and be a game changer, and then as well as you bring in wide receivers to replace the ones you guys lost last season. So the question is really going to be, how would JKS mesh with those guys? I mean, obviously they've had a whole offseason together. Do I think that what is really a necessary to be successful? I really don't. I do think that he's the kind of player that he will be able to work with anybody. I really do think that. The way he plays the game is it's kind of shocking sometimes, the throws that he can make and the way that his brain works in the pocket. I really encourage you to go watch some of his tape if you haven't seen any of it. But I think he takes a big leap, and I think that depends on the wide receivers that they brought in. We can't have any drops back there. And then I think using the tight end correctly, like that's where it comes down to Tosh DePoy. You got to use the tight end correctly. If you don't use the tight end correctly, then you just went and got a really good one from the portal for no reason. So I think to maximize your quarterback and to maximize your offense, you got to be able to use those transfer guys from wide receiver and tight end and everything like that. It's tough for me to do their projection because I really am high on this team, and I want to say they're higher than they are, but I have them going 8-4. I think that JKS is just a couple seasons away, maybe a season away from really being the guy in a national standard, as in like he's competing for being a first-round draft pick and stuff like that. So I think a ceiling of 10-2 is pretty accurate. They do play some tough games this year, and then a floor of 7-5. I think even if the wheels fall off this team, they don't finish any worse than they did last year. I really can't see it. I know last year they had some wins they shouldn't have won, or they weren't expected to win, and they had some losses they weren't expected to lose. But I think that with the way that their season looks this year, the ball is in their court. It's not going to be a season or a schedule defined by, oh, we have to play this team. We have one big game coming up. Like, it's not like that. It's more game by game, week by week. They'll prove more to themselves as a team each week. And so I think this year they start the year off with UCLA, I believe. That might be right. I can't remember exactly, but I think that they're a team that can really surprise people. So that's what I got for California. And then Stanford's next, the other California team. So the young and hungry, let me pronounce this right, Tavita Pritchard takes over as head coach. He's a young guy. He's very hungry for the job. He comes by recommendation of Andrew Luck, who's the general manager of them over there, or for them over there. It was a year last year of fluctuation, I would say. I think they had some really high highs and some really low lows. I think that the talent kind of held them back last year. I don't think that they had everything they needed to have to really compete in the ACC. To me, Stanford is one of those teams, especially one of those football programs, where NIL has kind of hurt them a little bit. They used to be able to take advantage of certain academic requirements and stuff like that to be able to get players that really, really, really wanted to be a Stanford Cardinal and everything like that. And I don't think that it's fully hurting them or anything. I don't think that they're one of these one teams that's going to be affected by it, because you look at other prestigious schools academically and you see Vanderbilt 10-win season last year, and like you just look around and I don't know. To me, that's what it seems like. But they had a very fluctuating year last year. I think with Andrew Luck's help with the general managing team building aspect of it, they can restore this program to consistently winning seasons. They did improve last year somehow from the year before that. So I think that's something to say about the team and about the way Andrew Luck's building the team. I think that he's building it correctly, but now it is up to Tavita Pritchard to kind of take it over and be able to get the most out of his guys with his X's and O's. They retained a ton of snaps from last year. Even though there's a change of head coach, they retained a ton of their snaps and a ton of their returning production from last year. So I do think that they're going to be one of these teams that's more experienced than people realize. And there wasn't a whole lot of change. There wasn't a whole lot of mix-up. But like where that stuff comes in is going to be less evident because they have so much returning experience, especially at Stanford. So one of the guys they brought in, their quarterback now, Davis Warren, he comes in from Michigan, and I think he played some games for them in 2024, and then I think last year he sat behind Bryce Underwood, I believe. So kind of a weird situation. Kind of got a guy nobody really knows about, if anybody remembers anything about him, honestly. So you're kind of in one of those situations where you don't know a whole lot about their quarterback coming in. I think it's going to be a tough schedule for them just because if you look at it, their talent compared to their schedule is kind of brutal. They kind of have like a top like 5 or 6 toughest schedule in the ACC, but I think they can come out and surprise some people. I think that people aren't expecting them to get more than like 5 wins. I don't think people are going to be expecting that, and it's tough for me because when you look at the talent disparity, you want to find these things to choose a team or like a team this year, but it's when you look at their talent, it's just kind of like blah all across the board. Like you don't find any guys that really stick out. They have a couple on defense, like 2. They have a safety on defense who's pretty good, and then they have a linebacker who's pretty solid. But there's no like thing that is like making them jump out of the page to you. That's kind of where it is, and projecting them was tough because I do want to think that they're better than they are. But I just didn't find enough of those players to really be able to say, okay, yeah, I can see them winning these games. I can see them surprising one of these teams. So I have them going 4-8 with a ceiling of 6-6 and a floor of 3-9. I think if they go 6-6 this year, that is by all accounts a massive win. They're going to be a bowl team. To me, that's a great win for them. And I think that new head coach Tavita Pritchard will be praised for what he's been able to do with the team so far. Do I see that happening? Not necessarily, no. But that's what I have for Stanford. Next up, I'll go to Syracuse. After starting 3-1 last year with Steve Angeli, he tears his Achilles. I believe it was in the Clemson game, if I recall that correctly. So he tears his Achilles. They go on to lose 8 straight games. I think that is a mix of bad luck and then also poor coaching. I'm a big Fran Brown guy. I like Fran Brown. I think he's a great coach. I think that he needs a quarterback to be successful in the system that he runs there and the kind of thing that he's got going on. You have to have a quarterback. And so I think for him not to have a quarterback for those last like 8 games or whatever it was, that's going to hurt him a lot. It's going to hurt him a ton. And am I going to hold it against him? No. And I don't even think Syracuse fans are really holding it against him. I mean, when your quarterback goes down with a torn Achilles and you're kind of going to backups for third strings, and it's not a recipe for having a winning season, and you can't hold it against the coach. He doesn't know before the season that his quarterback's going to tear his Achilles. I think that the one thing about this team that really stands out is when they did have Angeli last year, they looked like one of the hottest teams and hottest offenses. I think Angeli was leading the league in passing, or leading the nation in passing yards and passing completions and stuff before he went down. So it's like the system works, but you got to have the guy in the system to you got to have the engine to make the car run kind of thing. And so I think when not having that, I think that's to me, that's where this team is kind of built on. This team is built on the guys that they can put in the system. And I think that not having him for those 8 games is kind of what held them back for so much of last season. But with getting him back, there's going to be no excuses if he stays healthy. There's going to be no excuses. And I think they could be one of those teams that really, really, really surprises people this year. I think Syracuse is going to be one of those teams, people see him on the schedule and they might not think a lot. And then you get to play him and you're like, wow, man, this offense is high-powered, this defense. If we make a mistake against this defense, they're going to make us pay. I think that they have everything that they need to really be successful this year. The one thing that is tough about this team this year, last year it was a little bit different with their schedule. They still played some tough games, but the difference between their schedule last year and this year is that their 4 biggest games they get this year, in the ACC at least, are all at home. Every single one of them. So, their 4 toughest games are going to be at home, which most of the time people say, okay, that's an advantage, right? That's an advantage. Well, not necessarily, because when you play better teams at home, a lot of times people think that maybe you have a higher upset percentage because you're playing them at home and, you're going to have your home crowd and everything like that. But better teams handle away pressure better than teams that aren't as good. You know what I mean? So the other teams are bringing in to play at home this year. They're going to be more prepared than if you were playing a Stanford at home. It's going to be, if you're playing a Boston College or a Stanford at home, then you know what I mean? It's kind of like a win's a win, there it is. But when you're playing these tough games at home, a lot of times that can really be a killer for the team's morale. If you stay real close to this team and then like you lose at home in the last few seconds or the last couple minutes, it's just going to be it's going to leave a bad taste in not only the players' mouths but the fans' mouths. So I think that's one thing to really look at this year is like how they play at home. Like if they can steal one of these upset wins against these four teams, they really play toughly at home and they take care of stuff on the road, which I think they're very capable of taking care of road games. But if they can steal one or two of these upset games that they have at home, that's huge for the momentum and the morale of the team. And I think that's going to play a huge dividend. I think that the defense they run this year is going to be very, very important. I think last year they mixed it up a lot. They had a couple sets of 3-down linemen, a couple sets of 4-down linemen, which I don't like. I think you should stick with one, and you should bring on very rare occasions should you change your defensive lineman formation. But I think this year they're going to be more of a team that is focused on their safeties and their DBs. I think that they want to make teams beat them deep at safety and DB. I think that they want to stack the box, stop the run, and then put pressure on their DBs and safeties to make plays. And I think that is where Syracuse is really going to have a chance to surprise teams. I think people think that they can just beat Syracuse athletes around the edge and deep balls and everything like that, and I don't see it. I think that they can compete with the best at those two positions, DB and safety, that with anybody else in the ACC, which is a surprising thing to say with this team because of the talent. It's not fully there on defense, but on offense they have some weapons to really, if Angeli uses them right, then they're going to be dangerous. Their three best players on defense did return. A linebacker, a DB, and a safety. They all returned. So this is what I'm saying. They're gonna be relying on that experience and that talent that they brought back. So it's not like they just brought these guys back for nothing. No, the game plan is going to be beat us through these guys. And if you're gonna beat us, then you're gonna beat us as an entire defensive unit. You're not gonna beat just three of our worst players on defense and we're going to let up a touchdown. No. You're going to have to beat us through these three guys that we have that are super experienced, super talented, and the guys who are really the cornerstones and the foundation of this defense. That's how you're going to have to beat us, which I like. I like that. I like the philosophy. If they want to be a contender in the ACC this year or even make a bowl game, they have to win these big home games. I mean, they have to. They have to. If they go 2-2 in their four big huge home games, they're a bowl team. 100% they're a bowl team. Without a question in my mind, they're a bowl team. And I think that's where people kind of forget that like Fran Brown can really do that. Fran Brown has done that before. Fran Brown with Steve Angeli for half of the game or 3/4 of the game or whatever he had Angeli for, he went out and he beat Clemson in Clemson. I mean, that's not something you can just, you know what I mean, like not care about. I think that they have the potential, like the sky's the limit if Angeli's healthy and the defense is playing good. So it was hard for me to give them a projection just because do I see them beating any of those four teams of their home, like their big home games? Do I see them beating any of those four teams? No, I'm not picking them to beat any of those teams. So would I pick them against like a Vegas spread? Maybe. But I'm not going to pick them to win any of those games yet. I know obviously they happen later in the season, so maybe if they show me something before the season, or during the season, early on in the season, then I might choose them to win those games. But for now, I'm going to have them going 5-7. I think that's not a bad year. I think it'll be a question of if Angeli is really ready to go or not. You know what I mean? A lot of times players, they tear their Achilles and they're not fully ready to go, but I think it'll be different with this team. I have their ceiling at 8-4. This is what I mean when I say they can steal some of these games. If they steal, like I said, one or two of those big home games, and then they get some momentum and they keep it rolling, then you can't tell me this team can't win 8 games with how they played last year with Angeli when he was healthy. So to me, I'm gonna roll with the fact that Angeli and Fran Brown are gonna get it done as long as they're healthy. And I think their 4 losses come because of something on defense or close games down to the wire. As I said, ACC games a lot of times come down to who has the ball last, which makes it a nightmare for offenses and a nightmare for defenses too, but a nightmare for defenses especially. And I trust their offense more than I trust their defense. I think their floor is 3-9. I think it would be extremely disappointing if they go 3-9 this year with a fully healthy Steve Angeli. I really do think that. To me, I don't see a world where he's healthy the entire year and they only win 3 games. I really don't see it. I don't think they're even going to come close to that floor. I think that they win a minimum of 5 games this year. I really do. Next up, we're going to go to Pittsburgh. Another interesting team. They had a solid year in the ACC. Their offense was kind of hit or miss, as in when it was on, but when it was off, and they kind of couldn't get it rolling. I think a big thing that had to do with that was their lack of the rushing game. The rushing game was not great. I think that for a lot of the year, they kind of relied on subpar quarterback play. And to me, it's tough to watch it because you know that Pittsburgh, for a couple seasons at least, they were always like one of the better passing and running teams in the ACC. They were a top 5 offense, I'd say, in the ACC for like 3 or 4 seasons. And it's tough to watch it now because it's not like they don't have the talent. They're losing the game in the scheme. You know what I mean? And you can't be doing that as a coach for more than 3 or 4 seasons before you're fired, because you're not getting the most out of your players, and the people that are supporting the program and spending all the money in the program, they're not getting their investment worth. You know what I mean? So I think it's something to be looking at this year. They reloaded a lot of the roster with transfers. They really did. They attacked it hard. I think they have a top 8 transfer class in the ACC. Similar to what SMU did, but just not on the same level. They kind of went more guys than SMU did and not as talented. They kind of got a lot of 3 stars and stuff like that, which a lot of the 3 stars you can find a couple guys who really should have been 4 stars in those classes and everything like that. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think quarterback play and defensive transfers really determine the ceiling. And the momentum that they can gain is going to be crucial, because with the way that the ACC schedules work and the 8-game conference schedule or whatever, it's tough for me to think that they're going to win some of these close ACC games if their defensive transfers don't step up early. So if you're gonna put pressure on your defense to win games and they don't do it early, and you can't build momentum and the defense loses confidence, then you're kind of looking at another snowball effect of, okay, well, what exactly are we supposed to do with our offense that might be clicking if our defense and our defensive transfers we just didn't hit on them. We just didn't get the guys we thought we were getting. And to me, that's a tough predicament to be in. I don't know if they've named a starting quarterback yet. I think it's supposed to be Mason Heinschel. I don't know how you pronounce that name, but I think it's supposed to be him. He's a young gunslinger. I like this. The things that I've seen from him, I like it, but I think his decision making needs to get better, and I think that they need to call plays for his arm. You know what I mean? Like, I think he has 4 or 5 throws that he's really good at. One of them is kind of like the inside slant drag, and then one of them is kind of like the deep, like, back shoulder throw. And I think that they need to call plays that allows him to make those decisions himself and trust his arm in those situations. I think that if they throw in a little bit more RPO, it could help the running game. They weren't super heavy RPO to start the year last year. I think they kind of got closer and closer towards it, but I think that they need to be going like 20% RPO on play calls, just because when you don't have the offensive line that you need, and you need to be able to run the ball successfully, you've got to find it some other ways. I mean, we saw it last year with Alabama. They couldn't run the ball. LSU last year couldn't run the ball, and it just slowly killed them as a team as the season went on. It's okay if you're not running the ball well in weeks 1 through 4, but if you don't run the ball successfully the entire year, then, I mean, how are you going to win games against very talented, disciplined teams? And that's where I think that the RPO kind of comes in a little bit more, is if you can use it to your advantage and have your quarterback really learn the system and know what he's doing in that system, then you're going to find success. So I think that, like I said, the defensive transfers on this team, they kind of are going to make or break the ceiling for me. Projecting them was a little tough. They do have, I would say, a bottom half in toughness SEC or ACC schedule. I'm sorry. So I can see them playing closer to their ceiling, but I don't see it immediately. They're gonna have to prove it to me, and it's just tough because I had them as a long season ahead team this year, but to me they were the closest thing to a bowl team in that level, in that tier. So I have them projected to go 7-5. I think they have the talent to win more than 7 games. But I think that with what I've seen from the coaching staff and what I've seen from the offense, I'm not trusting it. Because I don't think, to be a successful team, you got to be able to run the ball. And so I think until I can see that they can run the ball, I'm not going to think that they're going to win more than 7 games. Just truthfully and honestly, their ceiling to me is 10-2. If they come out and they hit on their transfer guys and their offensive line's playing well and the coaches are calling the right plays and you're using Mason Henschel to his full ability, who I think he's a slept-on quarterback for sure in the ACC. But if you're using him to his full ability and you really you take the conference by storm with his arm, then I think it can work out for you guys to really win some games this year. So, like I said, this team's got a lot of volatility to it with how many transfers they brought in and everything. And then I got a floor of 6-6. I don't think that they should not be a bowl team this year, but I can see it happening if they don't get off to the right start and you got people injured. Like I don't think it's crazy to say they could go 5-7, but to me, I think they have the talent to go 6-6 at worst. And so I think if it's anything less than that, then it's on college kids, man. It's not on me. It's on the coaches and the college kids. To me, this team is set up to at least be a bowl team, but you never know. With some of the play calls that I see from some of these offensive coordinators, just mind-boggling stuff. That kind of wraps up the ACC. I will say I might have lumped Notre Dame in there. I'm gonna go through Notre Dame real quick. But one thing I want to say is why exactly Notre Dame is not in this conference doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I have a tough time seeing their POV on it, because what exactly is holding you back from it? Is it money? Is it the NBC deal? Is it whatever it is? I don't understand it, because you choose to play these teams every year, and like every other sport, you're mainly playing these teams, and to me, you're kind of just picking and choosing, you're cherry picking stuff, and like everyone knows this year coming into the year, Notre Dame has no schedule. I mean, they don't play anybody. They don't challenge themselves really whatsoever. Like their toughest games this year are SMU and Miami, and maybe I don't even know who else, but they don't challenge themselves really. And so that's why it's tough for me. It's like they're a powerhouse. They recruit with the best of them. They have the best of the best talent-wise. At least like join a conference and then be able to challenge yourself. You know what I mean? And if they want to join the ACC and just run through the ACC and dominate the ACC for the next 10 years, then that's fine. I really have no problem with it. But like all these fans of last year saying, oh, well, we should have got in the playoff. Well, no, you shouldn't have, because you don't play anybody. You don't play anybody every year. So if you don't play anybody every year, what exactly do you want? What do you want us to do for you? I mean, if you don't win your 2 biggest games of the year, why should you make the playoff? And to me, oh, well, we didn't have a chance to win the conference championship. Well, yeah, no way, because you're not in the conference. So, like, you guys, Notre Dame fans complaining to the entire world last year that it was a big idea or a big thing that they didn't make it into the playoff makes no sense to me. I think that that's one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in my life. I think you should join a conference if you want to make the playoff. And they made the new Notre Dame rule where if Notre Dame's top 12 in the college football playoff rankings, then they have to be in no matter what. That's a stupid rule to me. If you make them join a conference and you get away from this whole no conference thing, then you avoid all of that. And so, like right now, the ACC is stuck at 17 teams. Oh, well, what would make it even? Notre Dame actually deciding to grow some balls and join a conference. So, anyway, that's my spiel on Notre Dame. Lost Jeremiah Love and their other running back. I forget his name right now, but they lost their 2 running backs last year to the NFL. I think it's going to be tough to replace those guys. I think Jeremiah Love is one of those guys that he's a once a decade kind of guy at running back, and so I think Notre Dame is really going to be missing him. And even though they brought in some really talented guys, like I said, I don't think that they're going to be the same talents that Jeremiah Love is. And so I think that it's going to be a tough year to start the year with getting the offensive line and the blocking schemes perfected for your running backs that you have now. Especially at wide receiver and defensive line, they brought in some of the best talent in the country. They brought in, I think, 2 Ohio State wide receivers, and as you guys know, I mean, those guys are amazing for the most part. And then also, it didn't help with their wide receivers coach leaving and taking a different head coaching job. So it kind of left those guys out to dry, and Notre Dame they kind of took advantage of it, and they kind of just brought in those guys and then a couple D linemen. And I think that they brought in one of the better transfer classes in the country. The one thing I'll say about them is that because they have the talent to compete, I think that puts more pressure on Marcus Freeman than a lot of people realize. I think that Notre Dame is spending so much money, and they're bringing in this talent, and they're supporting the team every way they can. And Marcus Freeman doesn't really talk about it. He doesn't really acknowledge it. But there is so much pressure on his job. And I think unless they were in a conference, then I think it would be different. But with them not being in a conference, there's no excuse now for them to miss the playoffs, like, at all. Especially if people are talking about the playoff getting expanded and everything. In a 14 playoff, if they missed the playoff, okay, not a big deal. Like, it's a 14 playoff. We weren't one of the best 4 teams. That's fine. But with a 12-team playoff, and all you have to do is finish top 12, you don't have to win your conference. You don't have to do any of this stuff. All you got to do is finish top 12. You can be 9-3, and you finish top 12, and you're getting in. Stupid rule, in my opinion, but that creates kind of a vacuum, right? And so Marcus Freeman is in this vacuum, and he doesn't really understand how much pressure's in there. But, like, if this team loses 4 games this year, tell me one reason why he shouldn't be fired. He should be fired, 100%. And people are going to say, oh, Marcus Freeman's a great coach. He's a top 5 coach. And, I mean, if you don't win the games, you have the world-class talent. You have world-class talent. You have the talent to compete with anybody else. And I think you ask a diehard Notre Dame fan, and he'll tell you, listen, we're expecting 10 to 11 wins this year at worst. At worst, that's what we're expecting. So if you go lose 4 games, we finish 8-4, we're not even close to the playoff, and we're not in a conference, the excuses are off the table. Marcus Freeman, welcome to the hot seat. I mean, you're on the hot seat. They have, like I mentioned, super light schedule. They have CJ Carr, second year starting. I think last year that kind of hurt him. I think in the Miami game, you could really tell he wasn't fully comfortable. And I don't think that's anything on him. I think he's a great quarterback, but I think that with his second year of experience, he's going to get more comfortable. He should be better this year. Just straight up, he should be better. And so I think with him getting more comfortable in the system, more comfortable playing on the road and stuff like that, you kind of open yourself up to, hey man, tell me why we can't go win this many games. And so I think a lot of pressure will be on him, and a lot of pressure is on Marcus Freeman as well. Projection, I have them going 11-1. Ceiling of 12-0, obviously. I think they can easily go undefeated, and floor of 8-4. You look at their schedule, they have 8 games where they're going to be double-digit favorites, probably. So, you look at that, and you're like, the floor of 8-4 might sound crazy, but they have better talent than every other team they play this year. Every other team they play. I have them going 11-1 because Marcus Freeman always finds a way to lose a game in September. I don't know what it is, man, but every single year he loses one game in September. I don't know if it's some kind of deal he made with the devil where, hey, I get the Notre Dame coaching job, but I have to lose one game every September. But to me, that's what it's seeming like. Also, I don't think people realize the kind of environment and atmosphere that they're going to be walking into when they play Wisconsin. A lot of teams, like, you hear that game, you're like, oh, yeah, Notre Dame's going to play Wisconsin this week. Oh, yeah, it's going to be an all right game. Notre Dame will win by 20. Well, okay, hold on. It's in Lambeau, though. Last time they played in Lambeau, they upset, like, a top 5 LSU team, and that place was rocking. I'm pretty sure they drank Lambeau Field out of alcohol. That is insane. I think the atmosphere going into this game is what no one is talking about it. And so I think that a lot of people are going to kill Marcus Freeman if he loses that game. But if you look at it, is Wisconsin going to be bad this year? We don't really know. And with going into that game, first game of the year, expectations are high. Teams are they're trying their best to just take the head of the snake off first week of the season. I mean, to me, I think that they got a target on their back. Notre Dame does. And I think when you go play in this tough environment like Lambeau with a team that's hungry like Wisconsin and the kind of history that they have when they play at Lambeau, I mean, it would not surprise me if they lose that game, man. And like I said about Marcus Freeman always losing games in September, I think that he doesn't prepare his team early on in the season well enough to win games. I don't see it, man. I don't think they should have lost the game in Miami last year. I don't think they lost. I don't think they should have lost a Texas A&M game, but I'm extremely glad they did. To me, man, it's just like his teams aren't prepared, man. They're not prepared early in the year, and so I think that's one of the games I schedule or on their schedule that I circle, and I'm like, hey, this is a huge upset spot. And I mean, even now, Vegas has them at a 21-point favorite. What are we doing here? I mean, what are we looking at? Is Wisconsin that bad? I mean, I understand talent-wise, Notre Dame blows them off the map, but it's still a game of football. There's still 11 people versus 11 people. I don't see it. But yeah, that's what I have to say on Notre Dame. Sorry for that whole little spiel, but had to get that one off my chest. So we spun the wheel this week. The G5 wheel. And the team I'm going to be doing a little deep dive on, Middle Tennessee State University, MTSU. They had a very weird year, extremely weird year last year. Finished 3-9. I think that it was a weird year though because they lost their quarterback with I think 3 games left in the season. He went down with injury, and then they had to bring in I believe he's a redshirt freshman, Roman Gagliano. I like his name. But he takes over last year at the end of the year and proceeds to throw like I think he averaged like 300 yards a game and like 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I mean, he lit it up. I mean, he was on fire to say the least. And I think this is what this coaching staff needed. I think that so Derek Mason up to this point is 6-18. He's 6-18 in his 3 seasons there, I believe. Yeah. Is that add up right? Let me make sure that 2 seasons there. Sorry, entering year 3. But he's 6-18. I think he needs a young centerpiece, foundational piece quarterback to really be able to take that take his team to the next level. You know what I mean? And I think Roman Gagliano is the guy he just found to do it. I think that because of the way they finished the year last year, this is a team with a lot of optimism. I think that there's no excuses this year if he plays as well as he played the last 3 games of the year last year. They have like Derek Mason, he's the head coach there, and I think he found the young talent at quarterback, and he's got to surround it now. He has to surround it with talent, and I think he did a good job of that. They added some new pieces to the offensive staff, new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, and then they also brought in a ton of offensive line help in the transfer portal. So I think that the newness of the offense should mesh well a little bit, and I don't think Roman Gagliano will be able to take teams by surprise this year, but with the way their schedule is, they have a super interesting schedule, and with the way their schedule is, I don't see a world where they don't win more than 4 games probably this year. It's a weird schedule, but they do get a lot of big games at home, and then I think they go play Kansas. I think Kansas is one of their out of conference games, which I think is a huge opportunity for them. Obviously, super huge opportunity for Roman Gagliano too. I mean, if you want to get your name out there, you go beat Kansas in like week 5 or week 6 or whatever it is, and all of a sudden people are talking about Middle Tennessee State University. So I think that'll be interesting to watch. I think they have to turn a corner this year. They have to turn a corner, and I think that if you don't make that improvement this year with a brand new quarterback, with a young, super talented, lit the world on fire last year quarterback, and you got to win more than 4 games this year at least to really say you kind of turned a corner. And really, you probably should be a bowl team to really say you turned a corner. I think if you don't turn the corner this year, man, it's tough. And I think that they could get into a situation where they got more pressure on them than they want. I think the quarterback, though, Roman Gagliano, I think he determines the season for him. I watched some of his tape from the end of last year. He's got a rocket of an arm. I mean, he's got zip on the ball that you look for when you look at Power 4 guys. I mean, he has that zip. And he also has like a good bit of a touch on the ball. Like, he has some touch passes that I liked. He threw one last year, I believe it was against Western Kentucky in their rivalry game. He threw one last year, man, just absolutely beautiful, over 2 linebackers, right in the pocket of like Tampa 2 defense. So to me, I think that I think that he kind of determines the season. If he's playing well and he's got everything rolling and they can win some big games and they can stay competitive, then I think I think that they could be at least a competitor in the Conference USA. I know that they play like Jacksonville State, I think, at home this year. That's a huge game. It's gonna be interesting, man. It's an interesting team for sure. Projection wise, I have them going 5-7. Ceiling of 7-5, floor of 3-9. I think really their floor could probably be like 4-8, honestly. But when I look at their schedule, I see 3 extremely winnable games, like games I don't see them losing whatsoever. But I think a projection of 5-7 is pretty fair. I think if they get to 6-6, it wouldn't surprise me, and that also means to me that, hey man, this team they got the quarterback. They just got to keep putting together pieces around them, and it'll work. I mean, I think even last year with the way their team ended up playing out is like their defense wasn't bad and like their offense wasn't the greatest with the other guy in. But now that you have that guy out, a new guy in, it should bring some freshness to the team, some freshness to the offense. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's the G5 deep dive on Middle Tennessee State. So as you guys know, we're gonna be doing the Big Bets Billboard. This one was tough, man. I tried to give some reasonings. Some solid reasonings. I try to really look at the schedules and kind of break them down for these picks. Like I said, I'm going to give you four ACC season win total bets. So starting off, this is a tough one for me. As you guys probably know, I'm pretty high on California this year. So the number I got from FanDuel was 6.5. California over 6.5 wins this year. I love it. They went 7-5 last year, I believe. Well, I know they finished the year 7-6, but I think they went 7-5 in regular season. So I think that over 6.5 is a pretty fair number. I think they're kind of discounting because there's so many new wide receivers and the new tight end and everything. They're kind of discounting them down a little bit. But California has the opportunity to start 3-0. Now, will they do that? I'm not sure, but they have the opportunity to start 3-0 and really kind of make a splash immediately. I think week 1 they can make a splash and then they just kind of carry it along. So if they start 3-0 though, you need 4 wins after that. If they start 3-0, you need 4 wins. And really, I'm not even counting the UNLV game. They play UNLV, which that should be a win. UNLV is a good program. I think they're going to be a solid team this year. But UNLV is a good program, and I'm not counting them in this 3-0 games or whatever. So if they start 3-0, you need 4 wins, and they have 8 ACC games plus UNLV. So if you count UNLV in there and you want to take like a UCLA out, then that's still 3-0. That's still 3 wins right there, and then you're asking for 4 wins in 8 ACC games. So you're asking them to go 500 in ACC games. To me, asking a team with a talented quarterback and new wide receivers and a new tight end and a new head coach, I think they can go 500 in the ACC very, very easily. So that's why I like California. I think they're probably like my favorite one on this whole list. Them or Florida State probably. But next up, Florida State. Their number is at 5.5 right now, which is kind of crazy to me. They went 5-7 last year. The number's at 5.5, and to me, you're basically saying Norvell gets fired. I think that's kind of what it's kind of what Vegas is saying with that. They're kind of like, oh yeah, we see Norvell getting fired this year by like week 6, week 7, so we're not gonna put their win total super high. And I know for like a long time this offseason it was at 6.5, not 5.5, and then all of a sudden something changed, and yeah. So the big thing with Florida State is that when you look at their winnable games, they have 2 games that like they're absolute guarantees, basically. 2 games that are just absolute guarantees. Or, I'm sorry, 3 games that are like absolute guarantees. Like, for sure wins. And so if you give them those 3 wins in the games that they should win, then you need 3 more wins, and you need it in 7 ACC games. 7. You have 7 games to win 3 in the ACC. And that's also not including they play Alabama this year, which I mean, obviously we saw them shock Alabama last year. And then they also play Florida in the year. So why exactly could they not beat at least one of the SEC teams? Which, I mean, I'm not gonna say they're gonna beat Alabama, but I mean it's definitely possible. Same thing with Florida. And also, they would need, 3 wins out of 7 ACC games. I think that's extremely doable. I think people are discounting, people are making this line like Norvell's already fired. You know what I mean? Like, it's already a formality, and as soon as he loses 3 games or 4 games, he's fired. I think people aren't believing in him enough, and I think that teams honestly are sleeping on him. I think this year he has a legit quarterback. I think that's the biggest difference. I think Norvell is a guy who needs a legit quarterback. He's got it this year, so that's why I'm okay with betting them over 5.5 total wins. I think it's a little disrespectful, honestly, but it is what it is. Next, Virginia over 7.5. So I'm not the biggest fan of Virginia this year. I'm really not. I think that a lot of stuff normally in a regular schedule would need to go right for them to hit this 8-win mark. But they have the easiest ACC schedule I've ever seen in my life. Like, they do. And they don't play, I don't think they play Clemson, Miami, SMU, and they basically don't play like the top 4 teams in the ACC. If you don't play those top teams, and I'm asking for wins here and there, you know what I mean? Like, against teams that are kind of on the same, similar caliber and stuff like that, it's tough to me. So they have 5 games that they will be favored in, pretty much easily winnable games, or games that they're going to be favored in. And I didn't count NC State in that. NC State is another game they're favored in right now as we speak, but I didn't count that in there because that's more of a toss-up game to me than anything else. So if they win those 5 games, they're going to be heavily favored in by double digits probably. Then you need 3 wins, and you need 3 wins in 7 ACC games. 3 of those ACC games are at home. So if they lose every single ACC game, but they win the ones at home, then they have 8 wins. You know what I mean? Like, you bake in the wins that they should already get, and then you take the home wins in the ACC against not extremely tough opponents. So you bake that in, and I can see them getting to 8 wins easily. I really can. I don't know why. I think, to me, if I was making this line, it'd be at 8.5, not 7.5. But I do think that with the uncertainty of the team, the uncertainty of Bo Perbula and stuff, I can see how they got this. Like I said, do I agree with it? No, not really whatsoever. But it is what it is. I think, like I said, three ACC games in those last 7 are at home. So win your games. And they really play 9 ACC games this year. Like, they play NC State to start the year, but it doesn't count as an ACC game. So, I mean, really, that's why their schedule it looks so easy, because they played 9 ACC teams, and they dodged the top 4 in the conference. So, I mean, you dodged the best 4 teams in your conference, but you still play 9 ACC games in a conference that's not fantastic. Yeah, I like it. And lastly, this one's tough for me, man, but Duke over 5.5 wins. So last year they won 8 games, I believe. I don't see them winning 8 games this year. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't see them winning 8 games. I see them, if Walker Egan, the kid from San Jose State, if he pans out for them, even just a little bit, then I think they win 6 games easily. And that's because I trust the defense, and I trust Manny Diaz. And so, if you don't know about the kind of defensive coach Manny Diaz is, then you should look up the kind of defenses he's created and the kind of defense that he puts on the field consistently. They have 4 extremely winnable games. 4 games they're probably going to be favored in, if not double-digit favorites. And that's, games against Carolina, Boston College, I believe. Just games that they should win. Just games they're going to be favorited in. They still have the defensive talent, the offensive talent. They still have Nate Shepard. They still have players to be able to supplement it if Walker Egan isn't the best quarterback in the world. But I don't know. So if you count those 4 winnable games for them, then you need 2 wins, right? And you need 2 wins in 6 ACC games, right? So you have to go 2-4 in the ACC to hit this mark. Or you can beat Tulane or Illinois, and then you just have to win one of those games. So I didn't count Tulane in one of those games that they should be favored in and stuff like that, because we don't really know. I don't really know what Tulane is going to look like this year. The new head coach and everything. So I'm not going to pencil in a win for them, even though they do play. I think they do play Tulane at home. So I'm not going to pencil in a win or anything there. But I do think that they have 4 very winnable games, and you need 2 wins. I'm sorry, and you need 2 wins in 6 ACC games, and you should beat Tulane. I don't think they beat Illinois. Who knows though? Anything's possible, but I think they should beat Tulane. So you factor in 4 winnable games, you beat Tulane, and then you have to go 1-5 in 6 ACC games that are going to be somewhat tougher. To me, man, I don't know how this line's so low. I get that it's a new quarterback and people don't really believe in him, and he's not Darian Mensah, and they don't have Cooper Barkate, and all the things you want to say about him. But I think people are writing Manny Diaz off way too much in this. But anyway, those are my big billboard bets. I think that it's going to be an interesting year in the ACC. I think that there's going to be a lot of one-possession games and a lot of who has the ball in the last 2 minutes of the game wins the game. I think it's going to come down to who has the best mix of a solid offense and a great defense, and I think that's really what it comes down to. I think that this is a year in the ACC that is going to determine a lot about what the conference looks like 2 years from now. Truly. I think that one thing I'll say about the ACC is they have a lot to prove this year. I think last year a lot of people were kind of pointing the finger at them and laughing, and I think they have a lot to prove this year. I would like to see them win some games out of conference. You know what I mean? They play some teams where, like Duke playing Illinois. I would like to see them be competitive in that game. So that way, at the end of the year, when people are talking about all the Big Ten's better, blah, 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 then an ACC team can be like, hey, man, this team won 6 games in our conference, and they somehow only lost to you guys by 3 points. Or they beat you guys. You know what I mean? So I'd like to see them be competitive in out-of-conference games and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's going to be interesting here in the ACC. And thank you guys for watching. Please comment down below what you think of some of these ACC teams, who you think you have won in the ACC. Let me know who you think the best quarterback in the ACC is as well. But for now, that's Still Smoking Tape, episode 6. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like and comment on the video.